Hello and welcome back. Today we are going to continue to take a look at the new features that are going to be part of C# 4.0. In this episode we're going to take our focus and we're going to focus on tuples. If you've not heard the term tuple before, a tuple class is basically a class that is built at runtime and can return any number of elements. In short, tuples allow you to simply and easily return multiple values from a method without the need of either using out parameters or creating custom return types. This is a pretty new feature. It's pretty slick. It's not new to the development world. Many other languages have had this feature in it for a long period of time. It's just now making its way into the .NET framework. And I think that as you understand the value and the power in a tuple, you can see in a lot of places within your code base that you could be replacing custom return types or out parameters with the usage of a tuple. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's write some code here to kind of show the benefits of a tuple. So I just have a little app here that's just a little, console-based app, and I've got a class here called SomeBusinessClass that pretty much has no real value in it. But what we're going to do is create a few methods in here. So let's go ahead and do this. The first thing we're going to do is create a method that takes a single input parameter, but we want to return two individual integers. And the first one is going to be a success count, and the second is a failure count. And we're going to do this by using out parameters. If you've needed to return multiple parameters, this might be a solution you come across, you implement. And what you'll have to do here is, of course, set your success count to something, set your failure count to something, and you're good to go. The problem with using out parameters is they require you to declare them on the calling side of it, but also requires you to push them in even if you don't need or care about the value on the return side. So let's go take a quick look at this example. So I have my method here, and I want to put in my input value. And the first thing I'll need to do here is make sure I mark the two outputs as output parameters. And then I'm also going to need to create local variables for each of my outputs. This isn't super complicated, but it is kind of a pain in the butt. And I can run this class, and at the result of the call, I'll actually be able to look at my success count and failure count and see if it runs. Let's go ahead and do that now. Failure counts 2, success counts 1. Okay, so everything seems to work, and that's a good option. But most people I talk to, myself included, I'm not a real big fan of out parameters. So although that is an option, I think there's better options. Now, if you don't like using out, you can do the next best step prior to tuples. You can create a method that returns some kind of custom return object. The problem with this is you've got to write custom code to allow you to implement this. So you've now had to add another class to your system, and manually code another 7 or 8 lines of code. Nothing super major here, but it is just more to maintain. And to use this, you just do new custom return type, 1 and 2. And if we bounce back out of our caller here, and you can see that custom return type allows us to very easily access the values. So this isn't super painful. The downside to using a custom return type is that you do, again, have to create the custom classes. So how can a tuple solve both of these implementation problems? Well, let's take a quick look. Let's bounce back into here real quick. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a new class But instead of returning as a void or as a custom, I'm going to use the new class or a keyword, tuple, T-U-P-L-E, and it's part of the system.tuple namespace. If you look at the IntelliSense, you'll notice that tuple has 8 overloads, T1 through 7, and then or T1 through T rest. And basically, it comes out of the box as 7 to n. And typically, if you're returning more than 7 values, you probably do need a domain object or some result object because you're probably passing back way too much. Or, let's be honest, write a new method or a new sort of libraries that do this because you're returning way too much out of your class here. But to use the tuple, I have to use generics here, so I'm going to say int of int. And if you're, been using generics in .NET, since 2.0, you've probably seen methods with this type of signature on it. So let's go ahead and create my method. Now, how do I construct a tuple? Well, I'm going to have to return something. How do I return a tuple? Well, there's 2 options here. I can do one, which is return, and I can say new tuple. And you'll notice that my IntelliSense picks up the signatures immediately, and I could say 1 and 2, and that will create a tuple and return it for me. Or I could use the factory method that's on tuples, which is create. So there's 2 different options that both give you the same net result. Which you choose to use is completely up to you. So how do I implement a class, a method that actually, or use a method that actually returns a tuple? Now here's one place where chances are I'm not going to use a var on my return. I'm going to go ahead and explicitly enumerate that's a tuple, and that's an int. I'm a big fan of var, but I think in this scenario you cannot determine context for a tuple by using var, so it's probably better to clearly state that's a tuple of int or tuple of whatever. And to use tuple, you just do tuple dot, and you'll see that there's item 1, item 2. Now here's what I would see as the only real downside to a tuple is there is no clear enumeration of the intent of the return values. It's just item 1, item 2, item 3, through item n. So you can do this by doing item 1, tuple dot item 2. So as you can see, using tuples is extremely simple and can reduce the amount of code or complexity in your code by either reducing the need to create custom return values or by reducing the need to use out parameters, or in the example I didn't show you, having a return value as well as out parameters, which is just getting in all sorts of evilness. So I hope you learned something today. Until next time.